Welcome back to the Mom and Mind podcast, Behind the Sessions. I am your host, Dr. Kat. And on today's episode of Behind the Sessions, I want to talk about something that I see a lot in private practice with the clients that I support, and that is fighting sleep. When I say fighting sleep, I mean people who are exhausted, just running on empty, and when they have a moment to themselves at night after kids go to sleep or all the things are done for the day, and they have a chance to themselves lay down and rest and sleep, the urge to stay up and not go to sleep, not get the sleep that they need, even though they know they're tired, they know they want sleep, they know they need sleep. But what I'm talking about is this like really difficult to push past urge to stay awake. I know a lot of people deal with this. However, during the perinatal time, the loss of sleep is so um, prevalent. It happens so often and it impacts mood so much that I think it's really important we talk about sleep. And I've talked about sleep, had many people talk about sleep here on the podcast and how important it is. But there's something unique that happens when finally have some time to yourself. You want to what are the things that you want to do? Play a game on your phone, watch whatever random TV show, um, listen to a podcast, uh, I don't know, do your hobby or whatever it is. So some part of the urge to stay up late is that like people finally have time for themselves where they're not needed, they're not wanted, they're not being asked a million questions or pulled in so many different directions. And it's nice to just chill and do your thing without interruption, without pressure, um, maybe without guilt, except for some people still feel guilt that they should be sleeping, quote unquote, should be sleeping, and actually should be sleeping. But for a lot of people, that is a really important time of the day. It's a decompression, it's relaxation, it's um, really independence, feeling uh, that autonomy again of, like I said, not being touched or needed or pulled in different directions. And it is important. That alone time is absolutely important. And I wish that we didn't have to squeeze it into the wee hours of the night to get it. And that's sometimes just the truth for people that that is the only time, when everybody is finally resting or sleeping. But it's not always for that reason that people stay awake. Interestingly, sometimes it's kind of a bit of a form of avoidance. Um, it like prolonging the next day, especially if you feel like the days are monotonous and just the same thing over and over, which is a common feeling. Um, it's like wanting to hold on to a little bit more time during the day that you're in so that you don't have to wake up and like be in the next day already. And I'm not talking about dreading the next day necessarily, although that is a feeling that comes up with depression and comes up with anxiety. Um, I'm just talking about right now, kind of avoiding the monotony and that feeling of like having to gear yourself up to do it all over again. Another way that this avoidance of sleep can happen is um, sometimes the nighttime process and the sleep process, like in the early days, early months of postpartum, is a lot to manage. To having to wake up multiple times, this process of just like trying to get back to sleep, finally falling asleep, getting woken up, that is really hard, really hard. And so sometimes especially for people who are nursing or people who are the primary caregiver, like are responsible for feeding. The avoidance to go to sleep or the putting off of going to sleep can be this feeling of like, well, I'm going to be woken up anyway in, I don't know, an hour or 2 hours, so I might as well just stay up, which sometimes is necessary and needed. And, like all of these things are valid, and understandable. Just real stuff that people go through. This particular dynamic I'm talking about sometimes is connected to anxiety, that like that anticipation of baby waking up, um, and that anticipation in and of itself keeps you awake maybe longer than you intended on staying awake. So that anxiety might be primary there, and that might be part of what is contributing to you not wanting to go to sleep. Either the anticipation that you're going to be woken up, um, or sometimes for people that they won't wake up. I've had talked to people who are so exhausted, that they're fearful, worried, I should say, that they're not going to hear the baby crying, or some noise that they're making. So out of fear that they won't hear that, they'll force themselves to stay up, stay awake, well past their level of exhaustion, so that they can try and catch, the baby's needs, catch them when they're awake, not miss anything. So it can work kind of both ways, where you're both trying to avoid going to sleep and you're trying to avoid not being able to wake up. Another type of avoidance of sleep could be related to, like, if you're somebody who's dealing with trauma or PTSD, or you have really vivid nightmares, or disturbed sleep, or have disturbances in your sleep related to dreams or nightmares. Sometimes the of wanting to avoid having those nightmares can be also a part of that anxiety or trauma that is impacting your wantingness to get the sleep that you need. Well, one of the things that's so difficult about this pattern, and more difficult for people who are dealing with like a clinical diagnosis of something, is that the less sleep you get, the harder everything is. That's just facts. You don't even have to have a baby, whatever. Like anybody who has lost sleep is going to have a harder time during waking hours and during sleeping hours. So it becomes, and can become like a cycle of repeatedly pushing sleep back, not getting enough sleep, it leaving you frayed and irritable, and um, potentially more anxious, more depressed, which then can impact your sleep further. And it's not like, all of the examples of pushing sleep back, it's not like you can only have one of those. Sometimes it's multiple reasons and they could overlap and they can be impacting one another, meaning like you could just legit want some downtime and alone time and also be avoiding sleep or pushing it back farther because of, particular anxiety that you're experiencing. And I also want to say here, there's no judgment at all in what I'm saying, or how I think about this. The whole point of these episodes is, as I've said before, is to just lay this stuff out there for you to know, if you are somebody who's dealing with sleep challenges in any of these ways, that it's a thing. Other people also have difficulty. Other people are struggling as well. Um, because at the core of a lot of, what we discuss here, there's just so much shame and so much guilt for not doing it right, or not having the right attitude, or whatever, any number of things that add to the pressure that you feel, um, are contributing and compounding your experience. So that there is no judgment from me. There is really the hope that by laying stuff out, by naming it, by calling it out, and helping you hear the things that other people discuss in therapy, you can know that you don't need to judge yourself either. You don't have to beat yourself up in your thoughts and in your feelings and can like further contribute to the judgment or the shame or um those complex feelings that you feel for not getting it right or not doing enough or whatever your narrative is. One of the best things I think for anybody in their healing journey is to hear something from somewhere else that resonates with their actual lived experience, that gives them permission. So I want this to give you permission to just notice, even if you do nothing about it, even if you change nothing, you don't go to bed earlier, you don't get somebody else to cover night times, whatever, you don't do any of that, at least at bare minimum, you can know that you don't have to judge yourself about all of this. Just like think of how relieving that is. How much better things feel when you don't feel bad about feeling bad. In my mind, there's no need for that. Um, the judgment doesn't change anything. The putting yourself down doesn't improve anything. All of that makes you feel worse. It doesn't. Maybe your goal is to get more sleep. The judgment's not really helping you get more sleep. You might eventually feel guilted by yourself or somebody else into changing a sleep habit or sleep pattern, but it's really not helpful overall. I mean, things are hard enough. We just don't need to add all of this insult to injury and compound our own stress in this way. So that's at least one thing. If you can take away from this, that um, if you need permission to not judge yourself about it, if you need just to build awareness that, okay, yeah, this is something that I've gotten into a habit of, that I'm pushing sleep back, and like, think for yourself, is that something you want to continue? And maybe you do. Maybe that's like golden time for you and you don't want to give it up for anything. Well, cool, fine. Maybe though you've noticed that it is impacting you negatively and you are feeling worse, then cool, you know that too. Having awareness, having a little bit more compassion, a little less judgment really goes a long way in the healing process. And also just making life lighter and easier in general. And if you are somebody who continually feels guilty about not sleeping enough or getting to bed early enough, it can feel daunting and overwhelming to totally upend your sleep schedule, your sleep patterns, and do something completely different. I think that's also too much. It's too much pressure and doesn't really need to happen in that way. One of my favorite compromises here is that you can do both. You can guard those nights that you stay up. Um, you can make sure that they're in your schedule. You can allow yourself to have that time. And for some nights, also prioritize your sleep. It's, I think, better if the nights that you're prioritizing your sleep are consecutive. For instance, having 2 to 3 nights where you make a deal with yourself that you're going to go to bed sooner. You, you know, set yourself up to be able to do that. And, we all know that that can't always happen. Sometimes life happens or kids are sick or whatever. But for the most part, you can decide to set your schedule, make an agreement with yourself to get to bed earlier, and work backwards from that time. Like, what is your ideal time to go to bed so that you can get, if possible, depending on the age of your child, a 6 hour stretch of sleep minimum, 5 or 6 hours. What time would you need to go to sleep? and then work backwards from there. So I would suggest a good sleep hygiene is to try and not really be on, in your face, bright electronics within an hour, a very minimum a half an hour before you go to sleep. So you can do something else, or if it's music that you listen to, you can do that, but something that's not like stimulating. I mean, if you're like reading the news and it's getting you really activated and upset, that's probably not the best thing to help you get to sleep. So you can decide on what your own sleep routine is. What are the things that you would like to do? Do you like a certain scented lotion that you associate with relaxation and calming? Do you like to take a bath? Is that something that helps your body relax? Do you like to meditate, or you could do deep breathing for a bit of time to help your brain and your body regulate and relax? Any number of things to help you have a sleep routine, so that your body can adjust and start to go to bed a little bit earlier. And if you can split the difference, maybe half of the nights where you're prioritizing sleep, even like 4 out of the 7 nights, maybe at least in the beginning, prioritizing sleep. And then those other 3 nights, yeah, do your thing. Stay up a little late, um, watch some stupid TV show that you love, whatever that is. Because I don't think you should deprive yourself of those nights that you need. And I also don't think you should deprive yourself of the sleep that you need. Both are important. I would argue that if you're dealing with a perinatal mental health condition, getting sleep is primary. That is the number one thing that's going to help you feel better. So that might include negotiating how to get a little bit more sleep or a lot more sleep with your partner or a family member or someone who can help you take care of baby while you get that rest, if that's available to you. So I hope that you consider this if you are somebody who is postponing sleep, is avoiding sleep. Just kind of take inventory of what your nights are like, what your weeks are like, and decide for yourself if a shift or an adjustment could be helpful to you. And if you're not sure, you can always try it out and see how it impacts your mood, your level of irritability, your level of anxiety, your level of depression. Getting that sleep is a bit like taking a really nice medicine that helps you feel more regulated, and a little bit more like yourself. So I hope this has been helpful for you. I appreciate you being here with me today. And if you haven't yet, please make sure that you're following or subscribed to the Mom and Mind podcast wherever you listen to this podcast. And if you have time, please go and leave a review or a star rating. That really helps people be able to find this podcast and get the help that they need. Thank you so much for being here. Until next time.